All right, here we go. Today we have a Houston legend in the building, Lil Keke. Welcome back to VladTV.
Appreciate it, 100. Thank you for having me.
It's been a decade since our last one.
Yeah.
And in fact, the last one I think I did remotely, so this is our first time actually meeting face to face.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Well, congrats on your long-time success, man.
Man, I appreciate it.
You know, you really put in a lot of work to get to where you are right now. And I feel like you're really appreciated at this point in your career.
Yeah, finally.
Finally.
Yeah.
Well, we've done other interviews, but this is a little different. I want to start in the very beginning. So, born and raised in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were born, your dad was 50 and your mom was 28.
Yeah.
But I guess your dad had lied about his age. And
yeah, he got away with one. You know what I'm saying? I think he looked very young for his age.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually, my mom moved him from Louisiana, and she was living with her aunt. And her aunt's husband was friends with my dad. So just imagine that. This is your aunt's husband's friend, but he's still playing the game as if he's much younger. So like I say, genes, they strong though. That's why I look a little young myself, so he got away with it.
Well, don't you have a sister that's older than your mom?
I do. I have a few sisters that's older than my mom, not just one, actually maybe two or three, you know what I'm saying? Like, so my sister, I still have a living sister right now that's about 78.
Damn.
Yeah, this is my sister. I have nephews 55, 56, you know, older than me. Nieces 4 or 5 years older than me. Like, I was Uncle Keke at about 6 or 7. 5, born into being Uncle Keke, actually.
How many kids did your dad have?
My dad has
You got to think about it.
4.
Okay, that's not bad.
No. I'm counting by heads. 4, 5, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not bad. How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
Okay.
3 boys.
All right. Congrats.
Yeah.
Congrats. Okay, so what was Houston like in the 90s?
We was just talking about that not too long ago. It was much more of a different place because it was getting ready to go into the screw era, and which is that's from the drinking and everything that we were doing. It's a more laid back era. It was a more of an era about being player and the cars and the women and the outside and the club, and became real. And the ride, and the Houston car culture is such a big culture here, but in the 90s, it's always been here, but in the 90s, as it collided with the screw culture, it became a big thing.
Well, you started sipping syrup at 14?
Yeah.
Okay. How were you introduced to it?
It was right in front. It's right in. It's here. Maybe, like, I would say this. At 14, in the 9th grade, I got an opportunity to taste it for the first time. But around 16 or 17 is when it became something everyday thing.
So around that time, it seemed like you got in the streets. You started skipping school, and when you're not going to school, you start getting into stuff. So what were you doing back then?
Hustling. We outside. I'm from a neighborhood with a lot of boys. You know what I'm saying? I try to always, for people who don't understand, I try to compare our situation to maybe like the Hot Boys in New Orleans, or I don't know if y'all ever seen, what was the show in Baltimore? The Wire.
The Wire, yeah.
We have a lot of boys. So crack and rocks and all that is everywhere. So being introduced to it, my neighbors were some of the biggest gangsters, you know what I'm saying? They're right next door to me. So I grew up in an environment where people are always like, no, it was just right there. It was inevitable. It was right there in my face. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't easy to get into. It was hard to get into, I mean.
Right, because you probably remember when crack first hit Houston. I mean, you were young, but what did you see that started to change in your neighborhood?
Well, like I always tell people, that was my eras when some of my group and my age group, some of our first sexual experiences was with people, aunts and mothers, and different things like that. That was some of the most dramatic things as I think about it later on in life. So as far as the renting of the cars and the people losing valuable possessions, man, I've seen people lose homes, cars, man, and that was the first drug that we experienced that where people, you know, they'll sell anything, they'll sell you their baby, you know, if they think
they'll sell you their baby.
Yeah, if they think you can, if you can have it, that's how bad crack was at the time. I don't even think it's that bad right now, but the first introduction of us in 85 and 86 when I first seen it, that was the time where crack was really taking a toll. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was much more than just the hustling part. So, yeah, I'm from that time.
Yeah, I interviewed Elisa Deek yesterday. Me and him are the same age.
Okay.
And, you know, he talked about how he saw when crack first hit. In the beginning, it didn't seem like a big deal. You know, these were like working people, professional people, a lot of people that would do cocaine, kind of transition to crack thinking it was the same thing. But after a couple of years, that's when you started to see the effects of it. This is when their faces started to get all hollowed out and people started losing everything and so forth.
Well, for me, it was a little different. Ali may be a little older than me too, but it was a little different for me.
He's 51.
Yeah, he was a little different. When I first was introduced to it and seen it, it came in hard and harsh. You know what I'm saying? So like I can't remember a time where it had the cocaine feel. You know what I'm saying? Where it was a leisure drug and you could do it and get away with it. And now, with my first introduction to crack was the shifting of the money for such from a lower standpoint, and the changing of the format, the faces, the bodies, everything. I was introduced to it like that.
Well, you said by 15 you actually had to feed yourself.
Well, what I mean by that is, like, we were already outside.
Yeah.
What I told people, like, some of my first introductions of me telling myself that I'm grown, man, it was 2 o'clock in the morning on a school night. We were outside. You know what I'm saying? So what I meant by that, it's kind of hard to be out all night, 15, 16 years old, and then coming home and thinking mom is going to have a plate of food or something like that. So at 15, 16, I was already having to buy my Timmy Chan and find out what I'm going to eat during the day. And we outside all night. One thing I never did, that I'm not saying that I'm proud of the life I have here, but one thing I never did was once I got into the streets, I didn't put that type of pressure on my mom. Food, clothes, buy me this, give me this, none of this. Once we were outside full time, which was about 15 to 16, we were through with that notion.
Were you living with just your mom or both parents?
No, I've never lived with my father.
Okay.
My father he had his own home. My mom had his own home, so I had our own house. Very, very close. It's shocking how close it was. But no, didn't live. I lived with my mom, and my dad was in my life. It's just that, like I say, you got to understand, he had me at 50. So at 16, he's past fishing and going to the park and shooting a hoop. He's 66 at 16. You know, he died when he was 69. You know what I'm saying? When I was 19. So he's from a time where, now, if you can think we're taking the crack era wrong, imagine him. You know what I'm saying? Where they're from a time where all drugs were drugs. I don't care if you smoking weed, crack, they was all the same to them. You know, he's a little old. He's from a different time.